From Barangaroo Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
G'day and welcome to the COB on this Wednesday. I'm Andrew Gagan. Thanks for joining us as we wrap up the day here at AusBiz. It's been a really interesting day on the market because we began very positively. A lot of that off the back of some positive corporate results we got, but if you can see a chart there, COB 200 at around 11:30 Eastern fell off a cliff. And that was all because of the CPI data we got out, which was pretty much same as we heard from last month, but there were expectations that inflation was going to ease further, but not as much expected as it turns out, and therefore the equity market sort of turned lower. The Aussie dollar went the other direction on the prospect that the RBA may well have to hike rates again. Let's get to the themes of the day then. That does lead with a sticky situation, that is sticky inflation. It just will not go away despite what the RBA has already done, of course, so they may have to do more. Not so wise, that refers to WiseTech. Its shares coming under significant pressure off the back of its results today. I'll get to that in just a moment. And chips in for Nvidia. Well, that's certainly a potential market moving event that we're going to get early tomorrow morning. Our time will be right across that, of course, which is always keenly watched globally. Let's first though take a look at those sectors that have moved today. Tech, WiseTech really been the biggest drag there off the back of its results, and that saw Xero, Life360, Tech One also fall. Elsewhere, consumer staples, we heard from Woolies today. Yesterday or earlier was Coles. So Woolies up 4% off the back of its results. Metcash also benefiting as well. And in the energy space, just some negativity there. Look, we've also heard from Woodside as well. We'll be hearing from Karoon. So Woodside coming off 4%. Let's get to those top corporate stories then. And Woolworths reporting an 18% lift in net profit to 1.14 billion, driven by stronger supermarket sales and a return to profitability at Big W. WiseTech, profit down 11% to 178.7 million, despite revenue surging 79% to 1.4 billion, largely reflecting its E2 Open acquisition. Worley, profit down 36% to 238 million after Middle East disruptions and 120 million in restructuring costs. Paladin narrowed its annual losses. High uranium prices and increased production at its Langer Heinrich project lifted sales 71%. And Visa, the retailer, revenue up 18% to just shy of $939 million. Profit climbing 11%. Sales up 16% in the first 8 weeks of this new financial year. Nine Entertainment, profit up 7% to 142 million as stronger Stan and publishing subscriptions offset weaker TV and digital advertising. Domino's swung to $134 million loss after $256 million of write-downs as it restructures its business and closes 60 stores. And Drone Shield swinging to a $32 million half-year loss after adding almost 200 staff and ramping up R&D while reaffirming FY26 revenue guidance. Elsewhere, Netwealth, its profit halved to around $50 million after more than $105 million in legal and remediation costs associated with the First Guardian collapse. All right, well, let's now get across what we are seeing in the local market and more broadly too. And we are joined by Peter Maguire from trading.com. Pete, welcome to you. Good to talk to you at the end of the day. Let's just first start locally. What are you making of some of these corporate results we're getting at the moment?
Well, some of them are quite good, and good afternoon, Andrew. I think, depending upon the sector, of course, if it's energy, if it's you're looking at consumers and so on, Woolworths numbers, I thought that overall the market really was moving in quite a nice tempo, and I'm feeling as though that, the way it's looking, September could be quite a nice month as far as, continued growth. The inflation numbers hit the market, that impacted us naturally. We saw that, bit of a sell-off, and the expectation, are we going to see a rate hike by the end of the year? So all of those factors need to be considered. One, you've got earnings, and then secondly, projected earnings moving forward. And that's always a hot topic, isn't it, when it comes to share trading?
Well, to that point, Pete, so the end of September may bring bad news in the form of another rate hike, because you take a look at that CPI data today
Yeah.
was higher than expected. So not good news. It goes to that problem. The RBA is just trying to keep inflation not only under control. I mean, it's obviously trying to get it down, but is it working? Will we see another rate hike? And what was the response on the market?
Well, 28 and 29 September is the big day, and one saving grace, Andrew, could be the fall off that we've seen in crude prices over the last couple of days has been strong, and you saw a fairly good washout again. That continuation today, we're looking at $80.50 for WTI and Brent at about 86.5. They're down over 2%. And why I'm suggesting that is because if you see a continued softness across energy prices, that will bring inflation numbers down. And at the moment, you're looking at about a 95% probability of a rate hike going into that late September sort of read. But if we get a good number, then that may be pushed out to December, or they may sit on their hands if it's better than expected. So let's just see. I think we've got the PCE dropping in 12 hours also from the States. And it's very, inflation is the number one component as far as, rate policy at the moment.
You mentioned oil. Look, gold, Pete, doing well.
Yeah.
Bitcoin as well. This comes back to that debasement trade.
Absolutely, Andrew. Gold's sitting at 4,700. That's front month futures. It was around that 47.25 sort of number. And I feel as though that we've got a big week ahead of us in the sense of you've got PCE tonight, and then you've got what happens as far as Jackson Hole, and what does Kevin Walsh present to the market, and what's his storyline going to be. Scott Bessent, he's on the warpath, not only with Iran, but certainly with the Fed as far as rates, and he wants to control rates the way he's looking, and whether he's going to have another lash at it, and I think he will, and I think it'll be far more aggressive. I think he just threw a little stone in the pond. He really wants to make this his show, and it's a very dynamic situation at the moment. I've never seen anything like it. You've got a very on the front foot Fed Treasury Secretary, and then you've got Kevin Walsh that, he's just the absolute poker player. He won't let anything out. So again, how's this going to look? What is it going to taste like? And naturally, how is Fed policy going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to just what we do hear from Kevin Walsh at the end of the week at the Jackson Hole Symposium. But given his track record thus far, perhaps not much, which may disappoint the market. But as you mentioned, Pete, just so much going on at the moment. Those US debt concerns, the Middle East conflict, of course, that rhetoric ramping up yet again, no end in sight there. And then you've got a new front in the tariff war as well.
Yeah, you bet. I tell you what, it's getting very, very aggressive what he's doing to Canada and again across the world. Everyone's in the firing line. So it just seems to be an onward and upward. President Trump and his administration aren't taking a backward step. They naturally want to get as much revenue through the door as they possibly can, and how that's going to look and taste in 27 is going to be very dynamic. And naturally, the impact that's going to have to tax, to debt, and of course to a Fed policy. So all of these factors, you've got continued growth across the AI sector, and a very big night in about 12 odd or 14 hours when the market closes. You've got the monster Nvidia releasing its numbers.
Well, in fact, let's go there, Pete, because potentially that is the big market moving event this week. What are the expectations? Because the expectations are always so high, and it appears it just sort of beats it every time, doesn't it?
It beats it every time. Well, and you've got to look at the numbers. I mean, total revenue and EPS projected 91.7 and $2.08 respectively. Net income could hit 50.5 billion and gross margin at 75%, Andrew. So that's, they're just extraordinary numbers, aren't they, when you think about it? So, could be just below those numbers out. It might even surprise us as far as how good it's going to be. And again, what does it look like moving into, the next quarter, sales projected, and the whole AI story is, it's just overwhelming, isn't it, when you're thinking of the numbers and what it achieves.
Overwhelming is the right word, Pete, and so it goes. Hey, listen, terrific to catch up. Good to get your review of what we've seen and what we're about to. Thanks for joining us at trading.com.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, well, let's now get to our stock of the day. And no surprises, because this is one of the most popular stocks here on AusBiz as far as our subscribers are concerned. WiseTech, having reported today. To get across that result, we were joined by our experts, Ben Richards from Seneca Financial Solutions and Michael Gable from Fairmont Equities.
What really matters with this stock is not necessarily the short-term earnings numbers so much as the other issues that they're facing. So we look at the governance issues with the founder, which has kind of engulfed the business over the last 12 months. ASIC, ACCC investigations, feels like all the regulators are crawling all over them. And then probably pertinent to the business quality is this AI disruption piece. So they just lost their largest customer, DSV, which raises quite a few question marks on the strength of their business model.
Well, it has been heading sideways, for the past sort of few months or so. The question is it building a base, or is it just stalling here and then it will resume that downtrend that started a year ago? So that's the big question. And I mean, Ben touched on the fact that there are a few issues happening with the company from a governance point of view. They've lost a key contract. So I think today's result really needed to just absolutely smash it in every single metric.
Right, now let's return to the broader market then and take a look at some of the winners and losers in today's trade. Pentora in the gold space there, clearly a winner, up more than 10%. Lavisa off the back of its results. So bucking the trend of what we're seeing in the broader retail space. Perseus also in the gold space doing well. Similarly with that copper play, Sandfire 9 also on that list. Those that have fallen into the red include Drone Shield. We caught up with them. Take a look at the interview on the website there. Interesting to what they see ahead for the company. Worley, Flight Centre, Domino's and Nvidia also falling today off the back of those results we've heard from them. At the smaller end of the market, TalkMet, White Rock Lithium remaining very volatile at the moment. That's up 16%. Also those gold stocks, as I mentioned, a number of them on the list today, given where gold is going. Whereas Jade Gas has come off, along with Ainsworth Game Technology. That was out with results. It's down more than 7% as well. G8 Education remaining under pressure off the back of its results from yesterday. So, to what is out overnight. As Pete mentioned there, US Core PCE Price Index for July, that'll be key, as well as the GDP read for the second quarter. Crude inventories, and the biggie, which we'll get across tomorrow, Nvidia's results, also CrowdStrike, Salesforce and HP reporting as well. And tomorrow here, of course, reporting season continuing. We'll hear from Wesfarmers, South 32, Minres, Perpetual, Karoon, Qantas and Sigma Healthcare, among others. So let's turn then to where we're finishing up on the market. As I mentioned there, having taken that big fall post the CPI release there late morning, looks as though we're going to finish around 0.4% lower on the CBO 200, a similar margin there that we're seeing with the S&P ASX 200. That is the COB. Thanks for watching and listening.